Try to.
So, welcome to Pete Lockett and Mauro Gatto on the Planetdrum OnAir live show.
Yeah,
Ciao.
thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Wow.
Hello, everyone. So, first of all, thank you, Mauro, for helping me with this live show. And of course, Pete, who has been so kind to accept our invitation. Thank you, Pete.
Well, thanks for inviting me on, guys. It's a pleasure.
Pete, everyone knows him. You're one of the most versatile and prolific percussionist in the world. You do a lot of clinics all around the world. You have played with a lot of very important artists, and you also teach. You're a guest professor, if I'm not wrong, in Shanghai, right? Conservatory in China, the Conservatory of Music, in the Royal College in Berkeley School of Music in Boston. You've been teaching everywhere. During this period of lockdown, this kind of profession, this kind of music in total has been a little bit isn't difficult because we can't get together. So technology and internet do help us a lot in this. Communication has changed. We are here talking with you through a computer during these live shows because of this, and we are having a lot of success. It's very good for us. A lot of people follow us. But you are also very in technology. Why did I start with this introduction? Because you have released one of the most one of the most active application called Drum Jam Percussion app, right? You want to talk about it? What's this?
Yeah. Well, I've put it out a few years now. It's like, for me, I think it's really important as a drummer, as a musician, a percussionist, as a drummer. I think it's really important to have a completely open mind to every kind of facet of the industry. So for me, I'm inspired when I hear different percussion from around the world. And I'm equally inspired when I kind of get deep into technology and all of the electronic side of what's available for drummers and percussionists. So for me, it was an obvious thing to marry those two things together. So to get involved actually in developing something for technology, but then also to be able to through that bring lots of different world percussion and different percussion sounds directly into people's homes, right under their fingertips in the app. So I'm blessed to have met a guy called Jess Chappell, who's a company called Sonosaurus, who made some amazing apps in their history of app development. They were one of the first music app developers, to be honest. And so I met up with Jesse and we discussed it and started to develop this thing, this app, which is a direct hands-on sort of experience of the acoustic percussion. So all of the sounds that are in the app are actual acoustic recorded percussion. It's not MIDI based. It's not bad samples and stuff like that. It's all acoustic audio, and it can be directly underneath people's fingertips and introduce them to some of the magic of that world that I love so much.
So you can also play, you can also play through on live shows too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much stuff with it. It's got Ableton Link, and it kind of works with everything. You can control your computer with it, or the computer can control the app. You can trigger all the drum sets that are in there. There are drum sets by Johnny Rabb and Russ Miller, Scott Pellegrom, and you can trigger those with your Roland kit, and they're all 30 or 40 layers of velocity deep. So it's even just for that, for like £7, £7 or something, is a bargain right there. But you literally got hundreds of different percussion instruments. You can create loops. One of the things that I always say to drummers about the app is one really useful function for it is you can use it to practice to. So it's got a random generator in it. So you can put up like a shaker and some bongos and a cowbell and a cajon and a taiko and whatever, it's Indian tabla and Indian gatam, all these different things. You can put them up, and then you can change the tempo from 60 to 200, and you can generate different patterns. So it's a perfect practice tool as well.
Yeah. It was released in 2012, right? And in the first week, it was top 5 in USA and in Japan too. So amazing success.
Yeah, when we did the first upgrade, it was top 5 in 40 countries for about a week actually. So it's done pretty. It continues to do pretty well. It's a great, but there's actually. I mean, I'm not the sort of person who brags about anything, achievements or anything like that. But there's nothing to touch this app. There's nothing anywhere close. Even since 2012, was that 8 years? Nothing's come anywhere close to being able to do what Drum Jam does. So.
That's great. We want to say first people who are connected and say hello. Jose Montaña.
Yeah.
Hi, Jose.
Jose is an amazing cajon player, actually, from Spain. Like, literally one of the world's best, actually.
Davide Antonio Falasca, Italian drummer. Luca, who says hello to Mauro, so probably is a Andrea, another great drummer. Carlo Marzo, one of our most important and creative percussionists. He's from Puglia, from Lecce, beautiful city. And also,
hi everyone.
Ken from Massachusetts. So starting to getting wider and wider. Our
global influence. Hello, Ken.
That's very good. Pete, you have worked with so many artists, very important artists. Your versatile approach to percussion made you work with so many different artists too, from technical to more commercial stuff. Also, you've been playing. You played for TV music, right? So I remember the James Bond movies, films. You've arranged the percussions for the movies. How are the different? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm 5 of the Bond
5
with David Arnold.
Yeah. How different demands, technically and artistically talking, in all these situations, and mostly are there differences in the approach in playing these different situations for a percussionist?
Well, I think in two different areas. First of all, there's the area where you would go in as a session player. So you're going in, someone's hired you to go in and do a session. And then there's the other area, which is a massively important part of my, career and development, and that's like, composition and collaboration. So in terms of the studio and sessions, you've got to be prepared for anything really. You when you go in, you've got no idea exactly what people want, and I would say the first most important thing to have in mind is you can't go in with an attitude of, let's say, for example, someone wants tabla and a few different things like that. I can't go into the studio if say it's a pop session, for example, and say, oh, well, this is how it's done traditionally in India, and I'm not going to do anything different. You've got to find out what that person wants. What that basically, when you go into the studio as a session percussionist, you're basically that person's sound module, and your attitude has to kind of reflect that. They're going to direct you with what they want. Now, for me, I was very lucky in the sense that early on in my career, I started to do a lot of collaborations and release albums, and so what happened was my session career changed because a lot of people would hear some of my either come to some of my concerts or listen to some of my CDs or whatever it was, and then they would call me for that. They would want that flavor on it. And so what happened was, with a lot of sessions, it became less of a do this type of do a Latin thing or do this or do that, and it became do your thing, and that was an important turning point for me, and made sessions a lot more enjoyable for a start, because you're going in, they're asking you to go in for your voice, so that's that probably happened after I guess maybe the first 7 or 8 years of sessions was just like regular demands, but then after that a lot of the sessions were asking specifically for some of the things that I'd done and some of that flavor, basically.
That is very important that you are calling for your voice. That is important. No, at least now you are calling for your voice for your sound.
And it also reflects back on, it boils down to personality. What personality does someone have as a musician? We don't. So quite often when we're learning or when we're teaching, we're kind of thinking about the basic skill set of showing someone a basic skill set. If you do this and you do that and you do that and you work on this on the double pedal and then you'll have X amount of skill level. But I think a much more important, question is personality and character. And sadly, there's not so much of that around, because a lot of players are kind of mimicking and copying kind of what's gone before or what's popular at the time.
It's like copy and paste, right? It's like copy and paste in the late years.
It can
not
be.
Like
Yeah. You go back to the 70s and you look at Bruford and Ian Pace and all those great drummers that had such character. You'd hear one of them.
Yeah.
Even Bill Bruford, just for the snare drum sound, you'd know that was Bill Bruford. It's funny because I'm good friends with Bill. Obviously, Bill, worked on we had a project together that we did the Network of Sparks album, and we toured for a while. And I saw him. I was working in a studio down near where he lives last year, and we went out to dinner one night with the people in the band, Bill. And it's funny because Bill said, "Oh, people always say to me, oh, how do you get that snare drum sound?" And he said, "Well, I just tune it. I just tune it like that. I'm not trying to do that, make that sound. That's how I tune the drum, And those simple stories are great, actually. There's so much. Everything's so complicated now, and they're like, "Oh, you've got to do this and you've got to do that," and a pressure gauge on every third lug, and I just tune.
Tune and play.
Tune and play. Lift and.
Marco, bisogna stare attenti che magari noi diamo per scontato che sappiamo cosa ha detto Pete, non sappiamo se a casa hanno capito cosa ha detto Pete.
Yeah, but when
Marco
arranged with Pete that we will do this only in English, otherwise it will get too much,
Oh, okay. That's okay.
because there's a lot of people who speak English.
Right.
So there's
we
no.
are bad.
I can do it in Italian.
We can try.
Yeah, sure.
I was in a band with 3 Italians, a German, and a Croatian for about 18 months, and
Oh,
I
18 months.
didn't learn that much Italian, but I learned coccodrillo. He taught me coccodrillo and tortaruga. Obviously when we were drunk.
Okay.
I get the chance. I get the chance to say hello to Omar, who says, always very instructive, listening to Pete, and to Gabriele, who says, hello to all three of us. And I take this chance to tell people to ask questions. Pete is here to listen and to answer your questions. Quindi fate le vostre domande anche in italiano, eventualmente le traduciamo noi per Pete in inglese.
Ma Pete sa l'italiano. No problem.
No, diciamo che con Pete abbiamo deciso di farla solo in inglese per evitare questi momenti di pausa per le traduzioni. Lui preferiva farla in inglese, quindi lo diciamo per chi ci sta seguendo. Cerchiamo di parlare eventualmente piano, anche perché non è semplicissimo anche per noi, quindi faremo il possibile.
Because Pete is too fast, playing fast and talking very fast, I remember. You remember the interview of the 2011 in Frankfurt? You do that after the interview. That was crazy.
I remember. Here, one of our favorite guests, Pietro. Ciao Pietro.
Ciao Pietro.
It's a pleasure, un piacere Pietro. Guarda, da te ci aspettiamo domande importanti, Pietro, quindi cerca di spara e noi siamo qui. Esatto.
Shoot questions.
for Pete. Pete, I was wondering, I had a question for you though. Since I really like Peter Gabriel, and I know you've worked with him. I consider him one of the most innovative and artists who is in constant research, for new sounds. He's always evolving and experimenting. What have you done with him, and how was mostly working with Peter Gabriel?
Well, I didn't do much with him actually. I mean, did the Africa Out sound system, and we toured. That was it really. So it wasn't someone that I worked with extensively.
No.
Yeah, that's a quick answer, wasn't
it? I was afraid about this answer, but I said, okay, since I want to know something about Peter,
about working with, when it's amazing when you work with people of that stature, 9 times out of 10, they're beautifully humble people, they're great, just nice people, really.
Yeah.
And of course, Peter Gabriel, he's got amazing vision and
yes. In fact, yeah.
Peter Gabriel is have great ideas in anything. I remember because it was Jammer, the album. It was incredible.
One of the first musical videos was in the 80s.
I think importantly as well, you think about WOMAD and what he set up for world music with WOMAD, and how that supported that whole infrastructure of world music, for years. Actually, that was an incredible, Real World Records and WOMAD. I mean, it did a massive amount for world music.
Was one of the first real production that was very clear. You can hear the music. I remember that someone or some groups for Sardinia that recording with Peter. I don't remember the name anyway. It was very long ago.
Not Cordos de Cagna. Is that the Sardinian group?
Yeah.
How is it called?
Yeah, I mean, because I think Cordos de Cañas, I think they call what's his name?
I don't remember.
No, I can't remember. Anyway, yeah. That's amazing. Ago. I did a festival in Sardinia and the group of singers, that you get there were at the festival. I just remember being, what they do is you know, when you're kind of hanging out and in the bar and stuff, is they like set up little. They get like 8 of them in a circle, and you go in the middle, and that is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, when they're singing, you know, just fantastic, unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, really. It's very unbelievable. It's incredible. It's a tradition, you know.
Yeah,
Traditional.
that's one of the things in a way that we lose through, you know, through the way that popular music, the way that folk music, the way that all music is presented in you know, to you know, outside of its idiom in the West. It's kind of, you lose some of the specific cultural element of it, which often, you know, gives it its zest. I remember doing a project in Rajasthan where I went out into the desert. The promoter took me out into the desert. We were a couple of days going around all these little villages in Rajasthan, and put together, you know, like about 30 different people. Then I went back a couple of weeks later, or a month later. We did a week's rehearsal, you know, and then we toured India, and we toured, you know, we did the festival hall in London, and we did quite a lot with the project. Amazing project. But what was amazing for me was going to those villages and you know, realizing it was kind of like a big, you know, moment of change for me, because I realized that, you know, that's what it's meant to be. You know, it's music in that setting. It's just part of their daily life. They're not doing it to be famous or rich or to succeed or to gain any other, you know, ulterior motive outside of the music itself. It just is what it is within the culture. You know, they've got community, and a consequence of the community is culture, you know. Whereas in the West and generally outside of cultural idioms, we kind of have music as a fad or a fashion, or it's a commodity, basically. Now, it's not, you know, there's good and bad in both of those scenarios, you know, restrictive or completely open or whatever, you know. But it's interesting to have a good philosophical overview of music, I think, because it really informs how you approach everything that you do musically.
Yeah, correct. It's perfect. But it's not every time. It's not so easy to have this type of vision in the West. It's most easy, you
Yeah.
know, going in India or in Africa, Brazil. That, like you said, in every moment you play for, I don't know, for anything.
Well,
But
because
because
music is part of culture there. Music is part of
yeah,
what they do every day, you know.
but
That's
you
the
know,
that's
you're
the thing.
not. You're not
Yeah.
in West. It's completely different. No? It's different. Another type of vision of the music.
But then being a modern musician, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about the technology. You know, philosophically, it's about pulling all of those strands in, you know, all of those strands of awareness. On the one side of the coin, you've got, you know, electronics and technology. And other side of the coin, you've got, you know, like cultural music and music that's part of everyday life. And then you've got, you know, you've got all the other stuff, the commodity and the fad and the fashion. And then you've got, you know, performance areas that are different. So stages and auditoriums and stuff like that. But to me, it's all about pulling those strands together. To me, is all about connectivity. You know, how do people connect? So it's not about whether you play music correctly or incorrectly, or whether it's wrong or right. How are you connecting? You know, with your other performers? How are you communicating with music? You know, what is it that brings you together in that musical moment? You know, for me, that's the joy, that collaborative component that's the essence of it all.
Yeah.
Well, which is very difficult. I mean, this aspect is the difficult aspect of music. Everyone can play. I mean, everyone. If you study, then you can play. But the real difference in music is what you really transmit, and only through this path you can do, if in effect, something good for the people. That's what. If I'm not wrong, if I did understand what you really meant.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about good for the people about it, but it's more about, you know, what is the connection that you're making, You know, what's the connection between the performers and of course that is then good for the people as a consequence, as a natural consequence of that, you know.
It's
Yeah,
a mind and heart connection.
it is heart and soul. Heart and soul, probably more.
That's sometimes in mind
Heart,
too.
soul, and paradiddle.
Yes. There's Gabriele who's asking a question. I will just make it shorter. How did you get involved in playing Indian music and tablas, which are very difficult? It's a difficult instrument for human beings.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, the simple answer to the question is that it was an accident.
No.
Yeah, really?
Well, hell, but it's true. It was an accident. I was at drumming. Actually, was an accident. I was just walking past a drum shop. I was 19 years old, hadn't done anything in music at all, and there was an advert in the drum shop window. Drum lesson £5. Went in there, and that was it. You know, 2 weeks later, I was in a punk band, and a year later, I'd moved to London to pursue a career in music. That was it. Everything went into the music basket because it was just completely just ticked all the boxes for me. And similarly, the Indian connection was completely random in the sense that there was a big festival of Indian festival in Alexander Park in London, and it was there for a month, and they'd built like these huge life-size temples, and it was amazing festival. And my friend lived near there, and we'd popped into the festival, and we'd eaten some food, and we'd done this and that, and thought, oh, that's marvelous. You know, we didn't know anything about India. But anyway, one night was sitting there, and in his flat eating supper, and a window opened. It was a balmy summer's evening, you know, and this music comes through the window. We're like, wow, what's that? So we've gone off. We followed what this music was. It was like music from Mars. I've never heard anything like it. So we've gone off. We followed this music, and it was a free concert. You could just walk in, and it was the late great Ali Akbar Khan, who plays an instrument called the sarod, and the great tabla master Zakir Hussain. And I was like, wow, it's just like if you've never heard Indian music before, and then suddenly you've got it through giant speakers. I mean, there's like 2,000 sort of seat auditorium, so it was a big PA, massive sound. And then I kind of made a mental note of it, and I thought, well, that's amazing. I don't know what it was. I had no idea about anything that happened, And then a couple of weeks later, I lived in Tottenham in North London. Then a free newspaper had come through the front door and had fallen open on the mat, and it had fallen open, and there's a big advert for tabla lessons.
Wow.
And that was it. That's how
Destiny. Destiny.
Yeah. Destiny. Completely destiny.
Well,
but
we have
one of those instruments, once you start, particularly if you don't know anything about Indian culture or Indian music and anything about India really, and you get into it, and like everything is different. The way you strike the drums, the different sounds on the drums, the fact that you only play the left hand on one drum and the right hand on another drum, and then the way the rhythms work and the way that the rhythms work within the music, and then the people and the food, and like everything you're suddenly in this world of, like you're like a child again. It's like everything is completely mesmerizing and different. And that was a big attraction as well, getting into it.
If I remember good, Pete, you are one, or maybe the only one West teacher in India in music in the music academy, right? If I remember good, you are the only a tabla player, Western tabla player in that can teach in India.
No, someone else.
No, someone else. I don't remember. I see you. No, I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
I've seen you play with a lot of guys in India.
Yeah, no, well, I've done a lot. I mean, I've had, I think, 15 albums out there in the last 15 years. Lucky to, toured with all the, amazing classical artists, and I'm blessed, really lucky to experience that and spend time there, and and although all my learning was in England, all my my North and South Indian studies were in London, and when I went at the peak of it, I had a 6-year period where I used to have 4-hour lessons a week, and just used to practice all the time. I didn't work, I didn't do anything. I ate very simply. I lived like a hermit, and that was how I got. That was the bodybuilding aspect of getting the some of the tech, because it's such a daunting instrument. Even like everything about it, is pretty full on.
It is. It is. You played with Raghav Mehrotra.
He's amazing, eh? Wow, what a drummer! My God.
Yeah, we have like a minute video. You want to share with us?
Yeah, pop it on. Yeah.
Let's try to see if we can share it. Well, the connection wasn't very good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay anyway.
Too bad.
Yeah. But the thing about it is, it's one of the things, like, that's a great composition, that that particular thing that we played, because it kind of demonstrates a number of the aspects that you get in South Indian composition of reduction and expansion, and the way that phrases are manipulated and moved into different phrases. One of the like, for me, one of the key important things about South Indian rhythm is how it takes very simple components and makes them into much more complicated scenarios. So with that composition, there's the line is da da dum da da dum da di da dum da dum da. So that's the first bit. And what it is, when you hear it, first of all, one of the reasons that I like this composition, and one of the reasons it sounds kind of cool on drum set as well, is that when you hear it, you don't necessarily understand how the rhythm's put together, because it just sounds like a load of accents flying around. But when you look at the logic of it, it's actually very easy. So the first line, da da dum, that's the opening part of it. So then you have 3 syllables, and they are 5 notes long, 4 notes long, and then 3 notes long. So you got da da dum da da dum. So da da dum, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Da da dum, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. And then that whole line then becomes reduced. The tut tutum becomes tut tum, and then you kind of get. So it's a really interesting example of how reduction and expansion phrases are put together in the macro, in the micro.
Yeah.
Gabriello says incredible just after. I don't know if he meant incredible how audio was, or
all of these videos are on my
yes.
Facebook.
In fact,
So,
all
but
those videos
that's
are in on Pete's Facebook and also on YouTube channel. I've seen a lot of videos, also old videos from 2006. So there's a lot of you've been sharing with everyone. There's also, if
well,
I'm
actually, you know what my website. I've got two websites. The petelockett.info is just like the normal artist website, but petelockett.com is now just for free lessons. So I mean, I've had that free lesson site for well, 15 to 20 years. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it's been there a long time. And you know, there's books on there you can download and for free, and loads of video lessons. A course on tabla. You download all the videos, frame drums, bongos, you know, Indian rhythms, all loads of stuff on there. So it's all free. All I need is a credit card number and the PIN code. Yeah.
all for free though.
No,
All for
it's
freedom.
all free. It's all free. It's
So-
all there. The little bit that I know, you know, when I started learning,
Is it correct? This one.
That's the free lessons one. Yeah.
Yes.
When I started learning, it was before. I mean, even when I was starting to learn bongos, I mean, not so much with the tabla and stuff like that, because I was learning from Indian masters. So you know, that was you know, on the rails. But for a lot of other stuff, you know, you'd hear it, but then you wouldn't be able to. You know, there were no videos, there was nothing. Obviously, there was no internet at that time, so you'd listen. I always remember there's a guitarist called Steve Tibbetts. I don't know, you know, it's a name worth noting down. If you like slightly avant-garde, obscure, you know, percussion. There's a guy called Mark Anderson plays percussion. Great percussionist, and he plays tabla and he plays bongos and some Latin stuff, and I think he must have done some Balinese stuff and things like that because of all the sounds that he uses. But I always remember I'd sit and listen to the CD of what he would play on the bongos, and of course I'd have no idea what how he was doing it. You know, there weren't any bongo players, you know, that I would see in London, and so it was a matter of you know, guesswork really, of listening to it and working out how it is. And that's why if you listen to my bongo playing, it's actually quite distinctly different from a Latin player's bongo playing. It's almost halfway between like Latin and Indian in a way, because in India they have you know, they have different sets of small bongos that they play like that. So, and there's a guy in Hungary called Cornell, and that was behind the Iron Curtain when at that point when he started learning, and he does this role. If you've ever heard, he plays in a duo called Thunder Duo with Gabor Dornier, and they've got some DVDs and stuff like that. It's worth checking out, seeing him online, because he's a percussionist, and he does this role that's like this crazy double stroke roll from Mars or something. You know, you're like, what was that? His hands are going like this. You know, it's got like that, and he's got this amazing double stroke roll. And what it was, because he couldn't, he had no videos. He couldn't see anyone. They could hardly get any records anyway in Hungary at that time, and so he didn't know how all that stuff was happening on the congas. And then one day he was in the barbers, and he watched the guy in the barbers with the I don't know how to demonstrate this. There's a napkin here. Look, what a beautiful napkin! This is Pete Lockett's napkin. Look, what do you think about that? Beautiful. Anyway, he would watch the guy in the barbers sharpening the knife like that. You know how they sharpen the knife?
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards.
Yes.
Like that. And he just sped that up. He thought, oh, that would be a good way to do a double stroke roll.
Oh, that's the way how he did his double.
That's how he came up with the idea. No one else does it, but it sounds amazing. But all those unique stories, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier about personality. And you know, a percussion teacher might take him to one side and say, look, you're doing it wrong. It's heel tip. You've got to do it like that. But in actual fact, you know, this idea of personality, I mean, he's not a traditional player, so he doesn't fall under the judgmental umbrella of having to fit into a particular, set of standards of any one genre. And so, but that, that character, that personality, I think is interesting. And going back to why I said that, it's this idea of listening, not knowing what it is, and trying to replicate it.
Yeah, completely true.
There is Omar, who's made a long question, which I really
Hello.
it was difficult. It was difficult for me to understand it though, because I don't actually. I think he meant, well, if you want to read it, but I think he meant to say what's the difference in the.
I think it's. I think if you can get it down to a line.
Yeah. The difference among Western culture and Indian music, probably. I think he meant it to a cultural way.
The way it's written, it could mean. Omar, I want to answer the question, but is there a way you can get it down to a line? No, because then everyone understands the question as well. That's the important thing,
Yeah.
So I know there's a good question in there, but I can't quite decipher it from that.
Yes, in fact, I tried. It's about 10 minutes. It's there, and I tried to read it again and see if I could come up to some logical question. But Omar, se puoi essere un pochino più preciso nella tua domanda, anche diceva, perché sì, più conciso e soprattutto
Very short line.
Rude. That was rude.
It's very long.
No, I mean it's typical Italian, no?
No, we're talking with him,
Oh, okay.
I think he meant it to be some cultural way of. He talked about the snare drum, but I don't know actually.
Let's see what he comes back with.
Yes. Here, where's when there's good feeling between all the performers, what comes out? It's really always a pleasure for those who listen. Connectivity between the musicians is everything.
Yeah,
this message was. Yes,
that's the thing. It becomes a three-way thing, because that's when if you think about what the audience get from a great performance is one of the things is that connectivity. They feel part of the circle. I always say you're playing for an audience and not at an audience, and I think although that's a very simple statement, it's a statement that not a lot of people, not enough people really truly understand in the philosophy of a performer.
Yeah, it's the statement is good for every kind of music, every musician, and at all levels.
Oh yeah, completely. I remember that I fallen in love with Pete with a Taiko to Tabla. Wow, it was an incredible album. Hirota, Joe Hirota.
Joji Hirota. That was one of my first projects. And Joji's great, because he's one of those people that, he's a contemporary Japanese percussionist. So, he's got the traditional thing, but then he's a great explorer, and he does a lot of different things, which that for me, I'm really interested in, because for me, I don't want to play a specific type of music. Really, I like to explore, and that's why I don't really work with that many bands. Actually, because I like to collaborate and kind of compose through the musical relationship, which isn't necessarily dictated by the direction or preconception.
Completely.
But Joji was great because he was a great explorer, and he was another one of those guys that if you saw him, if a traditional conga player saw him play, they be horrified at the technique, but it sounded great. He had this thing of these three congas, and he used to wear these gloves, and like the one he used to have, I think he had one central conga and then two congas in front of it, so it's almost like a snare drum and two toms. And he would kind of play with this kind of technique of I'll try and demonstrate it here, with the palm of the hands playing on the middle drum to get the bass tone, and then the fingertips coming round to get the you know, so that you get the kind of it's a Pete Lockett's tissue box. Kleenex, sponsored by Kleenex.
Extra
large is the best.
Yeah, a
So
new
he
endorsement.
had this thing on the drum that was here, and then the fingertips would be on a drum that's here. So you kind of have this weird, crazy, weird technique, but it sounded cool, you know. And all the drums were tuned, so it became like melodic. And then of course he played the Japanese taiko and shakuhachi, and so it was a really cool little duo actually.
No, I love that. I think that I have that that album. I will learn a lot of times. I hear I don't remember which years was that album.
20 years.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
For me, it was like a boom. You know, whoa, a new word. Yeah, who is this? A study. So what is this?
Well, that's great to hear.
This man.
How long have you been knowing you two, Mauro and Pete?
God, you got a better memory than me by the fact you can remember Taiko de Tabla. It's a long time.
Long time, because I've been I know you, Pete, thanks to Mauro, and it's about 15 years. Mauro, yeah, in Frankfurt, and then we got in touch with some books to write articles and reviews through Hudson Music, and but Mauro told me about you because Mauro knew. I don't know if you know that I've lived in India for 4 years when I was very very young though, and I didn't even know how music was, so I couldn't really get the music, the Indian music inside my blood. But I've lived there, and Mauro told me, oh, Pete, he's one of the best tabla players, the Western tabla players.
Be the best
Thanks for
tabla
that.
player that I know. it's incredible, man. I know.
Actually, when you go to India and you look at the level of players. I mean, that's what I was. In the West, like with drum set players, let's say drum set for example. We've got the top echelon of drum set players that the Weckels and the certain players like that who think I'm the super technical players, and then there's a huge big middle area.
Mm-hmm.
With India, that top area is much bigger. So even mediocre, if we would use the drum set as a metaphor, it would be just normal that people would be as good as Weckel, for example. It's just normal. The postman would be able to play really good on some percussion or something like that. So the level of technicality and is like super high. Even I remember I was lucky enough to perform and honoured to perform at the memorial in Mumbai some years ago for the great tabla master Ala Raka, Zakir Hussein's father. And I remember it started at like 5 a.m. and went on till midnight. I was playing in the evening with towards the end. And you go there in the morning and there'd be 4, 5, 6-year-old kids on the stage playing long compositions in 15 and 13 and just like mind-blowing stuff. It's like, wow, that's just like incredible, really. The level is just amazing.
I think that maybe they are already child care and
well they yeah, certainly those young ones were, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Probably it's like playing soccer for Italians, or maybe Spanish, or playing cricket for them. When you start from the very young age, you probably.
It's more than that, though. It's about expectation and also that if you look at the Indian tradition, this is another important thing. And it's not saying it's better or worse. There's good and bad in all of the different things. Just a different thing. That's all. It's not making a judgment to say it's
of course
superior.
Yes.
But you kind of you know, you look at what you need to do over the you know, with the overview of what's happened historically. And if you look at Indian rhythm and Indian music historically, you know, you can go back to 300 BC, where there's the first record of recitation, syllables, and clapping a time cycle. So in actual fact, the system has been, you know, solid. The classical music system has been, that's what I'm talking about, classical musicians here, north and south. The classical music system has been like solidly set in place for all of these centuries, you know. And so the actual mode and the methodology behind a lot of the learning is completely, you know, on the rails already. You know, what's going to be, you know, the correct procedure to learn certain things.
They have it in their DNA. I mean, it's inside them. They're probably born with it. It's a cultural thing, probably. Then.
No, but it's nature or nurture, isn't it? It's also the fact that the system's there. Like, for example, when you learn tabla, you know, the way that it's mapped out, the way that you learn compositions, is each stroke that you learn a first composition, just almost like double stroke roll, and then you'll do a couple of compositions involving those strokes, and then you'll add in a composition that brings in the na stroke, the sound on the rim with the first finger. And then there'll be compositions like this, and slowly it methodically builds up with all of this logical construct. And I think that's one of the crucial things, is that the way that the technique is built on a specific system that's kind of, in many aspects, remained unchanged for centuries. Now, if you're going to learn modern day drum set, and you know, you look at the books, you look at what's available, you look at the styles, there's like 1,000,001 different routes that you could go, actually. And, you know, it's, like I say, it's not about good or bad or whether one is better than the other, but you can see why a specific thing gets nailed when it's had centuries of you know, almost rigorous methodology in how it's built and developed.
Mm-hmm. There is an interesting question from Gabriele, who says if there is a specific album that you think where music, Western and Oriental music merge in a perfect way.
Wow, that's
It's a good question.
yeah, no, that's a very good question indeed. Yeah. I mean, I kind of always would go back to, I mean, in a sense, rather than it being an album, kind of think of players. And for me, the idea of tracing almost like the lineage of kind of what I do in many aspects. You kind of could go back and start with people like Colin Walcott, who was the sadly died very young at 40, but he was the percussionist with Oregon, you know, Ralph Towner. And he had a very eclectic setup, not just, you know, different percussion from around the world, but, you know, he played a little bit of sitar and he did lots of different things. But in a way, that was not idiomatic. It was just like kind of an interesting approach to an instrument that made it work with whatever Ralph Towner and Oregon were doing. And of course, then you've got you know, Trelock Gertu, the great master, and he's, for me, he's like absolutely golden, you know, period of in the middle there, a few albums that he did. To me, in a way, that's the perfect marriage between kind of Indian rhythms and Western music approaches. I don't think anyone's done it better than him with those key albums that he did in the 90s.
Can you write it down maybe after the live show, the names of some of these artists, what you mentioned, for the people who will
Yeah, yeah,
probably
sure.
also see it later on, or answer the questions? It would be good.
It would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
nice. I
certainly.
think that another great percussionist was from Mickey Hart from Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
It was another
I mean,
story.
the list is endless, really, in terms of, you know, great, Airto and great, you know, innovators on there. And Nana Vasconcelos, to
Yeah,
me is
incredible.
just was a legend, on
Yeah.
the instrument. Even, someone who can go to the front of the stage with an udu and a wood block and do a solo
Hmm.
and kill it. That's talent. That's music. That explains musical talent right there.
No, it's incredible.
Uh,
I
I've seen
see.
Mauro. I've seen Mauro with Chinese drums doing a great solo. Right, Mauro?
I'm studying. I'm studying. I'm exploring. Now I'm exploring. I'm very curious. Not like I'm not good like Pete, but I'm very curious about gamelan. I'm curious about anything, body percussion. I try anything. Yeah, I'm very curious.
Well, it's a really important thing, because the thing that it does is that, you learn those things and it informs what you do on your main instrument. It informs what you do on drum set. And I think that's one of the things that people don't necessarily grasp about learning a different instrument or a different percussion instrument, or they don't always realize how much it will influence, even if it's blind influence, your other instruments.
Yeah.
For me, when students come and they say, "Oh, I want to be a multi percussionist. I want to learn this and I want to learn that," you know, there's a point at which, okay, let's say you're going to start with, I mean, tabla is a more complex idea, but let's say tabla anyway. Start with tabla. Do tabla for like 18 months, say, and then add in a little bit of kanjira, and then after a year, add in a little bit of dumbek. Now, what happens when, let's say, when you've started to do the dumbek after the kanjira and the tabla, you practice on the dumbek, but it's not like you're not practicing on the tabla, because you're still, your fingers are still on the drums. Your mind is, the whole cycle of rhythm creation is still going on, between your fingers and your brain and your physicality and all that. And so you slowly kind of add them all in. But then what you find is that you spend X amount of time learning the darabuka, or dumbek, as whatever you want to call it, and then you go back to the tabla and you're kind of informed in a different way. And then you take all of those things and then you go back to the drum set and you find yourself thinking different things on the drum set, even unconsciously. It's such a valuable thing.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. The unconscious aspect is very important.
I remember that Manolo Batrena is playing anything with the same type of technically. I see that it's set up and they play the flamenco, they play a rumba, they play anything with the same technique. It's important. It's the music, right? Manolo was a great. I think it's great.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah. You see, Marco, that is Pepe Consolmagno. Is a
Yes,
great.
I was waiting for you to stop speaking. I didn't want to be rude and interrupt you, but there's Pepe who says, "Hello, ciao Pepe, ben arrivato."
Hello,
Pepe is a,
Pepe.
Pepe is a great percussionist in Italy for me. One of the most greatest.
It is. It
Fantastic.
is.
Well, I hope to come there and we can meet everyone in a performance or something next
Yeah.
year.
Hopefully. How are you there with this Brexit?
Oh, don't go there. It's the rise of fascism, the world over. We're in scary times. The end is nigh. let's enjoy ourselves before we die.
Was the city I would visit every year or even every month if it was for me, but now London is almost impossible to come and visit anymore. Passports and
I don't think it
Okay.
will be. It's not going to be quite as doomsday as that, but it's not a good thing. Let's put it that way. But I think you'll I don't think it'll be quite as bad as that after X amount of time.
we will find our way. Here's Omar, who's trying again with his
Second time.
his
Great, Omar.
second chance. How do you feel the difference of approach with? Okay, you're reading it, right?
Yeah.
About the personality.
Well, I suppose it depends. The question is that, like, Western musical culture in itself, what do you mean? Do you mean Western musical culture that's developed over the last few centuries with classical music and that sort of genre, or free pop music, or jazz, or just it's still difficult to answer, to be honest. Both, whether it's the West, or the East, with different ways of teaching and different ways of or not even the West and the East, but areas in the world where music is still part of their cultural everyday life, and areas in the world where music isn't. It's sometimes difficult to really understand what it is you're in it for, because it's abstracted from its a priori root here in the West, in the sense that a lot of the music that you will enjoy is either going to be digitally online, for example, or in a concert hall when we get back there. It's this idea of watcher and watched, the viewer and the viewed. So this differentiation between watcher and watched, or viewer and viewed, is less of a differentiation in areas of the world where music is integrally part of their cultural everyday life. And I think that's the difference with but that's the difference that I see, the fundamental existential difference that sometimes removes us from the root of what music actually is in its a priori sense. Now, it's not a negative thing, because one of the benefits of being in the West is that you can have complete freedom to do whatever you want with music. You can make whatever sound you like on whatever instrument, and create your own genres if you like. I mean, you can't do that in a traditional village somewhere. Make your own genre or something. So there's pluses and minuses in kind of both approaches, or both ways. So I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's an incredibly complex topic to get into.
It is.
Very
Pete.
big question.
Yeah, it is. Cultural questions are always difficult to answer.
You've got to pick out the most difficult questions, because they're the best ones. That's the most interesting to, because and it's not even about wrong or right. It's just like, that's what I think. Someone else might think something completely different. Whatever. Move on. But it's important to have things that make you think deeper about what it is we're doing. Why do we do what we do, when we do it, where we do it?
When you do seminars, do you have these kind of questions? I mean, do you talk about also cultural aspects?
It depends, really. It depends on the questions that I get from the audience, from the participants. I mean, it really depends. Sometimes I might get onto that. Yeah, it's always different. Like this, you know, we could do the same thing next week, and we could speak about completely different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, yeah. When you have a new student in front of you, what is the first thing that you would like to find in him in order to start a worthy job? Do you think maybe a
Or her.
worthy job? Or her, sure,
Yeah.
of course.
You know, you've got to find out what the student wants to know. Actually, in a sense, for me, I mean, I'm not the sort of I don't really teach that much now, to be perfectly honest with you. And so when people come to me, the thing that I, you know, always ask is, you know, what is it you want to learn, and what is it you want to do with it? You know, there's a saying in India that the student teaches the teacher what to teach, and it's really absolutely true, actually. The idea of, I mean, it may well work, you know, to build specific technique and stuff. To, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Book 1, page 1. You start there, regardless of whether you've been learning for 10 years or not, you know. And then after 2 months, we're going to do book 2, and then move on to book 3. That's not really how I envisage teaching. You know, for me, it's about, you've got to get inside what the student wants. That's what I think. You know, other teachers, you know, might approach it in a completely different way, you know, which again would be equally valid.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very, very clear concept. This one.
Well, Mauro is a teacher. You should get, make treasure of what Pete says about teaching.
Anything. I'm a teacher, but I'm a student from my students.
We're always students.
Yeah,
Everyone is always a
that's
student.
That's it. And it's amazing, you know, because when you teach, you know, especially for me now, because I don't really teach, you know, I don't really teach that much. And what's always interesting is when you go back to things that you haven't looked at for, you know, I don't know, years and years. Actually, sometimes you're going back to things and think, then you see, you know, little gems of value that you didn't see in the beginning when you first learnt that, or when you last taught it, you know.
I think that when you start with I love to play with teach with kids, because they have an approach sometimes that is incredible. You have studied for 4 years, and they comes with the phrases that you never think for years. Oh wow, I never do.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Back to that thing of personality again.
And the mind is not a game that's happening in the future, surely, but it's open to everything. You say, okay, you do that, and after a week, I do, teacher, I do the thing. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I steal
I mean, we've got to remember as well that, you know, you saying that is that, you know, all this stuff that we, you know, this formality that we have, you know, it at some point it was invented by someone. You know, someone made it up and thought, oh, that's a good idea. You know, we'll do that. We'll develop it, or it gets changed over time. You know, it gets massively changed over time. Simply, you know, like Chinese whispers sort of thing. You know.
I think that music is different from the like today and normal school. I said to my kids that you can copy anything from me, and I copy anything for you. It's not like at school. You have to not copy. You know, it's continuous copy and evolve the things. Now it's completely.
Yeah.
The music is incredible for the thing for me is
Yeah. No,
because
you're right.
I have an idea and going. It's like throwing a stone in the lake, no, and go expanding. One idea going to more ideas.
Well, it's a bit like you're teaching. In fact, what you're doing is you're teaching a language, because you know, you're not teaching the thoughts. You're just giving people the tools of a language. and then they develop their own thoughts. You teach people a language, and then they go on and write a novel, or do whatever they do.
Right.
Mhm.
I think it's correct completely. I agree with. No,
Oh, yes, I was. You said novel, and you lit up a bulb light to me. You have released a full length novel, didn't you? Survivor's Guide to Eternity in 2014.
Yeah, yeah,
What does it talk about?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just weird. I woke up one morning and started writing a novel, and then, that was it. It was I think 80 or 90,000 word novel. Took me 3 months, then took me 2 years to edit. In the end, that was the big thing. But writing it, and getting the ideas out. I mean, it's kind of philosophical science fiction. I'd say that's kind of what it is. Philosophical science fiction of with a bit of time travel in there.
time travel.
So,
Yeah.
so, so when not only a musician, you're you're an artist in all in all its aspects.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit like, with percussion is when I hear different percussion instruments, I'm kind of like often fascinated and interested, and I try and get a bit more light going here. Fascinated and interested and kind of get obsessed to a point,
Hmm.
obsessed to kind of look into them further. And it's just kind of the same with lots of things, like writing for me is I mean, because I've written so many articles, actually I kind of got used to writing. So obviously the books, and then I don't know how many technique articles I've had, must be um well well definitely in the thousands, I think. I mean, I wrote every month for almost 20 years for Rhythm magazine, or one of the UK drum magazines,
Hmm.
and then drum magazines around the world, like Modern Drummer and stuff like that. So pretty much for that entire period, I had a technique article every month. That's quite a lot of articles right there. But just loads of other articles. So I got used to writing, and then start with the book. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there's Andrea who says lack of influences from time to time is the basic of creativity.
Sorry, say that again.
Lack of influences from time to time is the basic of creativity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I don't
oh,
know. I mean, for me, I'm always influenced by something, whether it's, I mean, influenced as in inspired. I think that's the different word. It depends whether influences eat you up or whether they inspire your internal creativity. So it's about the balance of looking at external stimulus or internal stimulus. So in the modern age, we're completely hyper, bombarded with external stuff. Look at this, look at this, there's this, they're doing this, she's doing that, he's doing that, look at that, bang, 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 it's all going on. So what's I think, what our friend is saying is right, in the sense that actually to be able to shut off from that and be guided by, your internal
yeah, probably in this way.
creativity
Yeah. Yes,
is,
yes. I didn't read it this way. Probably it's correct. If we think about it in this way, probably it's correct. It makes you concentrate and more and try to get your soul out of the uh
also about, it's very easy, especially to be a musician, to be a decent musician, you've got to be sensitive. So to be sensitive means, therefore, that there's a degree of vulnerability, psychological vulnerability.
Mhm.
And so then we can easily beat ourselves up. So we start to look at someone who can do something that's, super ridiculous technically. And then we think, oh, well, that's the end goal. That's what we've got to do that. We've got to do that one technical thing with this instrument or that instrument for it to be valid, rather than following your own heart and your own creative impulses to develop your own material. So I think not being too overly distracted with external things means that you don't compare yourself overly with everything else that you're seeing, and that gives you a freedom to create, or gives you a creative license, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it's very fluent. the the thought. Yeah. I have one question for you. I've got so many questions, but of course we can't. I can't ask them
I'm very preparated now.
them
Wow.
but one I would like to know, to your opinion, which are some of the most memorable performances and recordings you have done in your career?
Well, definitely, in terms of performances, with that, go back to that Rajasthan project again, because the first time that we actually performed it was in the Jodhpur festival, and it was on top of Jodhpur fort, and it was like a midnight gig, and it was full moon, and the whole fort was packed with the audience, and and that to actually, I mean, that project, bringing those 30 musicians together, was literally the hardest thing that I've ever done, because there was musicians from all different casts. There was some trained musicians, there were farmers and builders, and it was all different people that I brought together from these different villages, 3 from this village, 2 from that village, 5 from there. And so there was a lot of politics in it. So there was 3 or 4 different translators, and because even though they might live 5 miles apart for centuries, they've never played, the families had never played music together. And they're different dialects. Even with that, some of these short distances, there's different dialects,
which are not dialects, are real languages, different languages.
Dialects, part linked, but different. Obviously, across India, there's massive loads of different languages, but different dialects within the languages, and so it's actually really complex to put it together, and also to make them all believe in it, because in the beginning they couldn't see they couldn't see it, but after the first performance, they did. But that full moon gig, that was just like utterly ridiculous. And I think in terms of albums, when I did my first proper kind of solo album was the project with Bill Bruford, and
great album.
That's pretty memorable. Always remember, Bill's always got, poignant things to say, and we'd finished recording, and we were in the studio sitting having a drink afterwards, and he says to me, it takes 2 years to forget where the bodies are buried. That's just a brilliant thing to say, because you always remember all of those little edits and everything. You remember them, every time you listen to it, it really bugs you, before computers and all that stuff, and everything, And so, exactly right.
Who says Super Pete? Nice start.
Everyone, if you don't know Jose, check him out, because he's like literally ridiculous cajon player, just amazing, totally ridiculously good. We're going to do one of my play from home series. We're going to do one together, so that'll be within the next couple of weeks, I think.
Okay, then we will share it.
Yeah.
Actually, we have some more, 2 or 3 more videos. You want to share one of them?
Well, they didn't really. It just doesn't really play, does it? So it's probably maybe not the wisest course of action to play another one. That first one didn't play, did it? So but they're all on
platforms
on my pages, on Instagram or Facebook or wherever,
Go and check them out. They're really worth for.
But it's an important thing, because I mean, actually, I'm going to wind it up in probably 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to draw a close to it because it's just got too many. It's too overwhelming doing so many. Like today's was with Brendan Buckley. Tomorrow is with a Rajasthani musician playing kurtal, which is like these amazing kind of wooden castanet things. And then Sunday is with a cool drummer from Malta, actually, called Benji. He's got a cool young drummer. But, I've had them with Nico McBrain and musicians from the desert in Rajasthan and classical, traditional Indian musicians and all sorts of stuff. And it's that thing of, like I'm here and I'm at home, but there's no reason why that should stop me collaborating and keeping that life energy and that communication and that music energy going.
Yeah. There's police coming and some of you have ever police sirens.
Pardon?
Police was the siren was coming and pick you up.
Yeah. They're on their way.
You have a studio in your home where you record this.
Yeah, not very big, but it's enough to to do. I mean, I can't play drum set and stuff like that here, but reasonable.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. One thing, after all this career, what keeps inspiring you to still play today?
Well, I mean, I live in the moment. I don't really, a lot of people kind of always ask me questions like that. And I was like, who do you want to work with? Stuff like that. And for me, I kind of live in the moment. And I think that's why in some aspects, although obviously it's horrendous, to think about what's happening in the world, the people that, I mean, with the COVID-19, everything else in the world is horrendous as well. But, with the COVID-19 situation, people, dying and it's just people suffering. It's horrendous, utterly horrendous. On a personal level, for me, I live in the moment. So, I mean, I've had, some really good stuff cancelled because of it. But because I kind of live in the moment, I think, well, I'm going to do what is it I can get control of? I've finished a book with 1,400 audio examples. I've got a new plugin that I'm developing with this great company in the UK, Rattle and Draw, a percussion plugin for Contact. I'm doing all these play from home things. When I've wound that up, I'm going to start a big free educational Indian rhythms thing. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to do that on a Patreon page or through Instagram or something, but it'll all be free. I won't charge for it. So because living in the moment, I'm kind of able to not be too sorrowful about what isn't happening and not be too worried about thinking about what's going to happen in the future and not being overly romantic about looking at what was in the past. So ideally to just try and be here now, like now here I'm with you guys and it's brilliant. We probably wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for this scenario. So like this, that's what I'm focused on. This moment in time, I'm here with you, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Live the day, yeah, day by day.
Here's to that. Look, I don't think I'm running out of wine. That wasn't in the script.
This means that we're almost over then.
I think when I fall over, that's it.
Can you name some of your new generation percussionists that you like most?
Well, it's kind of a difficult question because you don't really want to be singling people out, to be perfectly frank. But I think in terms of if I had to pick one person and who's like amazed me the most over the last few years, it would be a frame drummer called Zohar Fresco, who's just amazing, just like really technique, the spirituality of the music that he makes, like everything about what he does is it's almost like like a shaman, technical shaman or something. It's just amazing. Great musician, brilliant technician, and he's one of those people, and it's a rare combination. Zakir Hussein's another one whose technique doesn't get in the way of their purity or their innocence or their sounds patronizing, isn't it? It doesn't get in the way of their let's say musicality. Doesn't get in the way of their musicality and their honesty. It's not like they're great. A lot of people are great technically, and sometimes they'll stand behind that. Like a fascia in front of them. It's like, look at me, I'm amazing technically, and it doesn't mean you stop being a human being. It's just as vulnerable as everyone else. And like I was saying earlier, part of the key, I think, to being a good musician is having that vulnerability, and that's one of the complexities of being a musician, is that that's part of it. It's a vital component of what we do.
Yeah. Yes.
It's only music. It's only music. I think that I know Fresco is a great drummer. It's music. It's coming out. Any notes is music and feel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's incredible friend drummer. I agree.
I don't know if Mauro has some question for you, but
We have a lot.
I've got so many questions that we've time went so fast. It's already 1 hour and 26 minutes now. So really, I would like to say if Mauro has something to ask you to conclude this wonderful evening with Pete. Otherwise, we can arrange something again in the next future.
No, we hope that. I have a question that I see that Pete plays a lot of time the ATV frame drums.
Yeah, the A-frame.
The A-frame. That is talking about that A-frame, because it's the only one that I see that is very, for me, it's incredible instrument. I have to buy, I have to say, but I don't have the money at the moment.
Yeah, it is an amazing instrument, and it's originally invented by the late great Mr. Kakuhashi and his son Iku. Kakuhashi was the Mr. Kakuhashi was the inventor of MIDI, the guy, the founder of Roland. And he had this idea of, he wanted to have like a one button EQ, so just one one knob that you would turn to get a whole range of EQ. So not graphic EQ in that sense, but and so that was how the idea came into being. So the instrument itself is not it's not sampling technology. It's not synthesis, it's not physical modeling. What it is there's the synthetic durable head that's on the kind of squarish frame drum, and then underneath that there's a couple of piezo mics, and basically the signals from the piezo mics go through this complex EQ scenario that splits it into four different sectors, and then they're all processed individually to create kind of different aspects of the overall tone that you're creating. But one of the things about that, one of the reasons that it's the only electronic percussion instrument that I've ever been able to play in the same way that I would play a frame drum or different actual hand percussion, is that the first signal in the chain on that instrument is your touch on the drum. Yeah. That's what makes the sound. It's not like you're touching the drum and there's a sample of a timpani, or you're touching the drum and it's making the synthesis of a piano waveform or something like that. Basically, it's your touch on the drum that is getting amplified and made into the sound. And, that's one of the reasons that it's just great for percussionists, albeit, quite expensive.
Yeah, it's a different approach to electronical sounds.
Yeah, well, the production is a different. Yeah, the sound production is quite. Of course, you look at the wave drum and stuff like that. They've got mics inside, but still, it's not. It's a completely different technology.
C'è una domanda, visto che...
Yeah, so Pietro is asking last question. Sorry about that.
That's all good.
Is there a percussionist of today's or of the past, or a Western percussionist who inspired you most?
Not most, but I mean there are so many, that are amazing. But if you go back to I suppose the 80s and 90s, and you look at what the late great John Bergamo and Glenn Velez, gave us in terms of, bringing frame drums into the into the popular idiom, in a sense, making them readily available, and the techniques of them, with other, theretofore otherwise completely unknown, really, outside of their own cultures. So to bring those in a contemporary kind of manner, I think was a huge contribution to the percussion world today, because without those two, we wouldn't be seeing the popularity of frame drums and Rick and all that stuff like we do now, and also with all the hybrid techniques that we see many players developing on them.
John Bergman was incredible. I have the no CD or DVD, was the old cassette, the
VHS.
VHS. Of John Bergman. Wow, was incredible.
Yeah, actually, I've got that. I've got the I can whip you over a copy of that, actually, because I've still got that on digitally somewhere.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because I want to destroy him. I said no.
Oh.
It's like the first one of Ailton Moreira, the Brazilian drum set. Wow, great.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Yeah, amazing. And of course Nana Vasconcelos. And so lots of amazing players. Well, we're lucky,
Yeah, surely.
And we are lucky to have been here with you tonight, Peter. Really, thank you for giving us your time. It was really great chat with you, and you have made our guest list even more prestigious. So thank you again, and thanks to Mauro.
Well,
I do nothing. I was there listening. I was like a children.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. Down and stay safe, and wash your hands before you practice.
And after you practice too.
I do a lot of times. Anyway,
the best thing for it. Check this out. This is the best thing you can put on hands.
Shit, yeah.
Nappy care ointment. It's handsome. Look at it. That's what you put on when you've been to a tattooist. That's what you're meant to put on your arms.
Yes.
Afterwards, and it's the best thing because it's got lanolin in it. That's really good for your skin, and it soaks into the skin because it's lanolin based and stays there, so your hands don't crack. Anyway, thanks everyone.
We've got a lot of sponsors today. Kleenex.
Pharmacology.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you again. It was a real pleasure, and I hope to host you again next future. Maybe when you come to Italy, we are in Rome, and why not? We can meet together.
Fantastic. That'd be amazing.
Okay.
Ciao. Thank you, Mauro.
Ciao.
Bye.
Stay in, Mauro. Aspetta.
Ok. Ti è andato? Sì.